Well, the pro-drugs crowd are back. They've been silently sulking for the past 4 years since losing the cannabis referendum, despite significant support from the media. And it's not that they've stopped sulking, but they're just trying new things to try and suck in the public. But it's some of the same crowd. Let's check it out. So according to a NewsHub report, and interestingly, it was only NewsHub that actually reported on this open letter, it says more than 150 experts. Now remember that word, expert. More than 150 experts have signed an open letter to the government calling for the legalisation of all drugs in New Zealand. It says Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa presented the letter on Tuesday, calling on Prime Minister Christopher Luxon to end drug prohibition and legalise all drugs. The letter includes 155 signatures from experts in drug policy and criminology, including professors, academics, researchers, clinicians, and health professionals. And founding member of the group, Wendy Allison, was instrumental in bringing drug checking to New Zealand. And the chair of the group added to the statement saying a new drug law would benefit our society as a whole. So let's have a look at the letter. And Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa, it says, seeks a new fit-for-purpose drug law for Aotearoa, New Zealand, rooted in science, experience and evidence to promote harm reduction and protect human rights. There's your immediate red flag, human rights. The right to use drugs, the right to get addicted, the right to use and grow drugs around families and children. It goes on, founded by a diverse, non-partisan, independent group with a wealth of expertise in drug policy and practice. HRCA boasts a membership of over 50 individuals and 6 organisations, including the Drugs Health and Development Project, the Drug Injecting Services Canterbury, Aotearoa Drug Information Outreach, Know Your Stuff, Students for Sensible Drug Policy Aotearoa, and HIT UK. It's some of those groups. Drug Health and Development Project, according to their website, funded to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS and other bloodborne viruses amongst injecting drug users. They offer a wide range of services, including a needle exchange and drug checking. And apparently it's run by people who have a practical knowledge of issues that affect injecting drug users. I bet. Only 220 followers on their Facebook page, fortunately. Another group, Drug Injecting Services Canterbury. The title says it all. Aotearoa Drug Information Outreach. Same stuff as the first group that we just mentioned. They say we are a peer-based organisation with peer workers who have lived experience of injecting drug use. All our staff are non-judgmental and here to help. We neither condemn nor condone the use of drugs and respect where you are on your journey. And our needle exchange is completely confidential. That's handy for teens, and anonymous. Another group is Know Your Stuff. Yeah, the drug testing crowd set up by the Drug Foundation, who encourage drug use and try and persuade people that somehow drug use can be safe if we test some of them to make sure the illegal drug is actually an illegal drug, and then you can use the illegal drug. Students for Sensible Drug Policy Aotearoa, they're a club at Otago University. And HIT UK, never heard of them, not New Zealand, but I did check their website. One of their featured publications was a guide to safer injecting, step-by-step guide to reduce the risks of injecting street heroin and the specific risks of preparing, sharing, and injecting drugs. So they're a little bit like the Drug Foundation in New Zealand. Ignore the law, here's how to do drugs safer. So the so-called coalition is kind of like the hardcore group who sits off to the side, and most people stay clear of them because they're just not that friendly. That's what this coalition is like, the misfits. Now, on their website, they feature an anthropologist and drug expert who goes over the reasons for full drug legalisation and regulation. Let me show you just a clip.
What? So you want to just legalize all drugs? All of them? Even heroin and meth? Yeah, that's right. Especially heroin and meth, actually.
What?
Prohibition is the main reason why those drugs are unsafe in the first place, because they're not regulated for what's actually in them, the way that alcohol is. Every category of drug that exists has legitimate medicinal and recreational purposes, and can be used safely under the right conditions. Fentanyl, for example, is used for C-section births, and there's a prescription drug called disoxin, used for ADHD and sleep disorders. Guess what its sole ingredient is? Methamphetamine. Both of these drugs can be and are used safely by some people just for pleasure. Under the right conditions of poverty and trauma, certain drugs can be very addictive. But under different conditions, when a person has financial stability, community, and meaning in their lives, even the scary drugs can be used with no adverse consequences. No drug is inherently harmful just on its own. Everything depends on the context in which a drug is being used. But all people who use criminalized drugs are at risk of harm from social and medical stigma, discrimination, an unregulated supply, and police violence.
Ah, yes, police violence. Sheesh, there's some wacky logic there. P is all good if you're not poor and there's no stigma and the police weren't so violent, which of course they're not. Now, back to the News Hub article. It starts with the letter, as I said, the letter includes 155 signatures from experts in drug policy and criminology, including professors, academics, researchers, clinicians, and health professionals. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like 155 experts in the drug field in New Zealand. But further down, right near the very end, it admits that signatures include those from 8 professors, 31 doctors, 29 organisations, and supported by experts from 14 countries across North America, South Africa, Europe, and Australasia. Oh, so it's the 155 minus the experts from 14 countries, so it's 141 drug experts from New Zealand. But when you look at the full list of signatories, it gets really funny. And I suspect that the organisers might have prepared the list on the 20th of April. In the US, 420 is a date that both marijuana smokers and non-smokers recognise as a national holiday for cannabis culture. But having a look at the organisations, of the organisations, only 10 are out of New Zealand of the 29. So a third. In fact, some of them are American. And you know what they say about New Zealand groups importing culture wars from the US. So scrub those 3A. And one of the groups is Student Christian Movement Aotearoa. Now, I hadn't heard of them. Now I know why. I didn't want to. Here's a couple of events that they've hosted. Queer theology and post-heteronormative ethics. I won't say that heading. Here's another one. Charming. That explains probably why you haven't heard of them. We seek to be welcoming to all, especially people marginalised by sexuality, ability, gender, health, or ethnicity. We are a rainbow-affirming community. And they're big on decolonising their faith and seeking a progressive Christianity. They better talk to all the Pacifica and churches full of different ethnicities about that decolonisation. Those multi-ethnic churches throughout the country obviously didn't get the memo from SCMA. But let's be charitable though. This group are clearly, they may be a Christian group on a campus, but they are clearly not experts in drug policy or criminology. And then you have a look at the professors. Of the 8 professors, only 2 are from New Zealand. One is from that terrible America. We don't import their culture wars, do we? And Joe Bowden, up the top there, near the top, is he? He's not only a well-known pro-drug advocate being used by Jacinda Ardern to push the yes vote on the so-called expert panel, but shock horror, he's American. Yeah, I know. And then there's the doctors. Now, this is pretty shrewd because what they've done is they've grouped medical doctors with PhDs. Now, as you know, the two groups are very, very different. But only 21 of the 31 are from New Zealand. Now, I did check a couple. One was a doctor in transport policy and electric vehicles. One had a PhD on food sovereignty. One had a PhD in welding. There was a data engineer. But only 2, maybe 3 max were medical doctors. The rest are academics. So of the 155 signatures that we started with, the experts, there are 2 professors from New Zealand, 10 organisations, maybe 2 medical doctors. And then in the list of 155, less than 100, about 93, are from New Zealand. And here's a funnier bit, 29 of the signatories are the organisations that these people belong to. How do I know? Well, it says Know Your Stuff, but then Wendy Allison, the boss's name of Know Your Stuff, is also in the list. Professor Elizabeth Stanley from the Institute of Criminology at Waikato University is listed, but the Institute of Criminology at Waikato University is also listed. I think that's what you call double dipping. Now, just before we totally mock this open letter off the stage, I thought I would just check a couple of signatories who are experts. And here's one. He's a protester who turns up to Parliament a lot. He's an expert in protesting. Another has just graduated with a Bachelor of Creative Media Production at Massey University. Yeah, an expert in making films. One is a PhD student in gender studies who's researching post-prison experiences, so not a drug expert. One is doing a PhD in how self-identifying gender-diverse Māori practice embodiment and relates to their bodies in contemporary Aotearoa. Charming. Great study, but nothing to do with drug policy. One has a Bachelor of Communication. Well, I guess, yeah, is that drug policy? Trying to persuade us that drugs aren't harmful, but definitely not a drug expert. There was even a signatory who's a computer expert, but was also found guilty of causing unnecessary danger to the Mount Cook Airlines flight as it approached Wellington Airport by shining a green laser into the cockpit of a plane back in 2008. So that's, I mean, was he stoned? Is that an expert in stupidity? So this list isn't going too well. The takeaway from all this is that while the majority of New Zealanders recognise the harm of drugs and voted against legalising cannabis back in 2020, thank goodness, there is still a few activists who will get some media coverage that you should just take with a grain of salt. But NewsHub could have done this research before printing and promoting the open letter. They didn't. And sadly, that's why their trust levels are going through the floor.